that Muslims are overrepresented in convictions for sexual exploitation of young children. 90% of the convictions for child exploitation in grooming gangs is Muslim men. Muslims make up 4% of the British population, yet they're responsible for 90% of the convictions. That's a fact.
It's not a fact. What he's referring to is one study which he's conveniently picked out, which found that 84% of those involved in grooming gang crimes were Asian men. Now, there's a lot of problems with that study, not least because the group who were doing it, Quilliam, are actually a business partner of Tommy Robinson. And it does need a bit more breaking down. It's not good enough to just say that 90% of paedophiles are Muslims, or even 90% of grooming gangs are Muslims. This has all got to be put in context before you start saying things like that. So let's put it in context. So Tommy Robinson is claiming to know more than he can possibly know because there are no reports which tell us how many Muslims are involved in these crimes. However, the Quilliam report, which is what he's referring to, does speak about Asians and ethnicity, but that's not the same as Muslims. What the Quilliam report found is that 84% of those involved in grooming gang crimes were of Asian descent. Very nondescript. But note that it's Asian, not Muslim, and also note that they are a business partner of Tommy Robinson. So the first thing we have to ask is, what exactly is a grooming gang? Well, unfortunately, there's no clear definition of what a grooming gang is. In fact, the term grooming gang appears to have come from tabloid newspapers, as it first appeared in the Times newspaper in 2011. So the most useful figures we have on this actually come from the government department, the CEOP. And the CEOP divide their group paedophiles into two types. Type 1, who are 50% Asian, and Type 2, who are 100% white men, according to the CEOP reports. However, Quilliam chose to exclude Type 2, therefore cutting out a load of white offenders, because Type 2 offenders, according to them, cannot be defined as grooming gangs because there are no grooming tactics involved. But the thing is the CEOP never actually said this, and Quilliam's sources are still under question. So this all has to be put in context first of all. Quilliam also chose to ignore the CEOP when they warned that these reports should not be taken as a national indicator of the ethnicity of any criminals, due to the small sample size in their reports. However, from CEOP reports in 2012, done across several police stations in England, we found 2,120 lone paedophiles and 65 group paedophiles. That means that the group paedophiles make up 3% of the overall number. And what does this mean for us? Well, if you picture all cases of paedophiles like this, then only 3% are involved in group offences. And remember that grooming gangs are a subcategory of group offenders. We don't know exactly how many are involved, but if we take these figures provided by the CEOP, we see that grooming gangs actually make up a tiny percentage of the overall number of paedophiles. So trying to categorise all Muslims in this way is subverting the data when actually they make up this tiny proportion of a proportion. And all of this matters because after the far-right terrorist Darren Osborne mowed down Muslims in front of a mosque in Finsbury Park, his wife said that in recent weeks he has become obsessed with Muslims, accusing them of all of being rapists and part of paedophile gangs. It has a huge impact on how people are seen in society. And to broad brush accuse a whole group of people with a crime as disgusting as this paints them in an extremely negative light. It's a classic scapegoating technique, and it's been used throughout history to associate cultures, religions and ethnicities with sexual crimes and so to demean them in the public eye. So you see, the problem is that what Robinson says is not, in fact, a fact. It is, however, extremely dangerous for Muslims in this country. And it's a betrayal of victims of horrific sexual tortures who need these figures to be accurately reported. So just to be clear, even if you accept the Quilliam report at full face value, it does not say that 84% of paedophiles are Muslim. It says that 84% of grooming gangs are involving Asian men. That's not Muslims, that's Asian men. And also, grooming gangs is a subcategory of group offenders who are a small subcategory of paedophiles overall. And remember the golden rule of listening to Tommy Robinson talk.
You are being lied to. We all are.